Radio on Berlin.
Hey, welcome to Radio on Berlin, the historic series with Jason Oni and Rinus Van Alebeek, here on a full moon summer solstice special. I'll leave it to the guys to introduce themselves and where they are and what the show's all about. Happy listening.
Hey, this is Jason Honea. I am the Shitty Listener, aka Boy True. As you know, this is Radio 1 Berlin historic series. Standing here with Rinus Van Alebeek, we're right in the middle of what is now Bebelplatz, directly in the middle of the, I'm going to butcher this Latin, the Forum Friedrichianum.
Yeah, true. What shall we do? Shall we walk in a little bit in the direction of the former Prince Henry Palace?
Yeah.
And then we can see the statue of Frederick the Great on his horse in the middle of Untere Linde. To give you a little impression where exactly we are in Berlin. Oh God, there's a lot of
It's
police.
a lot of cops.
Yeah, heading towards the Brandenburger Gate. So that's on our left-hand side, and on the right-hand side there's the old new palace and the Berliner Dome. And there, if you start walking, you will see at one point a pink building, which is the Opera House. We are right next to it.
And did you want to mention something about St. Hedwig's?
Everything,
Catholic Church?
everything will come. It's a cathedral.
I love mentioning St. Hedwig's in conjunction with Friedrich.
No,
So-
you were here with much more different weather, and it was raining, it was cold, there was a lot of traffic on Untere Linde right then, and you wanted to do your show with Nicholas Schreck on the entrance to the Opera House.
Right?
Yeah, and then I kind of wrongfully forced you to go to another place where it would be more protected from the noise. But anyway, here we are, claiming that position right now. Not at all, but with a very, very nice view of the former arsenal, the former place where all the weapons were stored, which is now the historic museum.
Das alte Zeughaus da drüben.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with Alexander, the television tower right behind it. And that's Frederick, and the story starts with him. And I was reading this book, his biography, and I also stopped it because there were too many wars and too many descriptions of wars going on. And I thought, oh gosh, this is for some people who have recreated battlefields in the attic and then can do the troop movements over there, because it was exactly following all the troop movements. So I laid the book aside, I had to write a story, and then I picked it up again, and I came to the interesting part. And one of the interesting parts was that he built this thing over here.
The Forum Friedrichianum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the cathedral, because he was very tolerant to all the religions.
Right.
And at that point it dawned upon me the story at the beginning of the book where his youth is described. And up to 5 or 6 years old, he was surrounded by women. The mother, the grandmother, the sisters, the nannies, they were all there and all cuddling him up, no? But taking very much care, spoiling him, him being the little prince. And then his father took him away because he should get an education. And then the regime started with 6 to 7 hours of evangelical education, starting at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then an hour and a half being with the priest and things like that. So I thought, okay, that's where he got his hatred from every religion.
The hatred for his father.
And for the religion.
And for the religion.
Yeah.
Actually, St. Hedwig's, it was after both of the Schlesian Wars that all of a sudden he had a ton of new Catholic subjects, namely former Austrians. And as a token of reconciliation, and as you just mentioned, in a bid to show his penchant for religion tolerance, he allowed them to have their very own Catholic church right here. Interestingly, he also designed it.
Yeah.
He didn't pay for it. He didn't pay for it. He designed it. Okay? They had to actually scrap together money in the form of donations from different Catholic communities all over Europe. Yeah. Interestingly, as long as I've been here, St. Hedwig's has constantly been under renovation. There are periods there where they have that organ music in there. What is it, Wednesdays? Mondays and Wednesdays, I think it was. But then it closes down again. It has been looking like that now for about a year and a half. I'm told the problem is that dome. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm told the problem is the dome. The dome is too heavy for the rest of the building.
Ooh.
Yeah? And with Berlin and that soft soil here, it causes things to set funny. Yeah? That's what it was explained to me.
You think it's sinking in?
Sits funny.
That's the same thing I read recently, that they left the foundation of the original palace intact. Otherwise you would get like this balance effect, that the dome would be too heavy and lift the new building up.
Right.
So they left that resting and you got it equalized.
And they built on it.
Yeah.
But actually this is probably much lighter than the first palace, don't you think? Maybe using contemporary materials. It's not laden with all those statues. There are a bunch of things about it. Anyway, just wanted to St. Hedwig, the reason it's called St. Hedwig's is because St. Hedwig was the patron saint of Silesia. Yeah. And that's where it gets that name. Yeah. The Opera House, 1740, 1741. He wanted this thing to be big enough to accommodate the guests of 1,000 horse-drawn coaches. I believe it's the first place in Berlin that Mozart was ever performed. And I like the fact that he opened it up one Wednesday a month for free so that all the little people in town could come here and enjoy music as well too. Yeah, I think the German trend back in the day was to typically build the opera house directly on the side of a palace. And by doing this, he was representing that music just wasn't for the hoity-toities or for the blue bloods, but was there for everybody to come and enjoy. And interestingly, you guys, I have a friend who did some sort of like temp work here about 2 months ago. And he mentioned to me how cavernous it is here underneath the Bebelplatz, because the opera house requires so many passages and so many storage areas for instruments, for stage sets, for curtains, for all kinds of stuff. It's absolutely vast, going all over the place.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's nice.
All underneath us. Yeah.
But there's one thing that I can add to the story of the opera house. At that time, it was very fashionable to have a kind of post-Palladio buildings. So this is an extended version of what Palladio used to do. And Palladio is a famous architect, a very almost like functional, very, very rigid, very loyal to the Pythagorean, how do you say it, 3, 9, 27?
3, 9, 27?
Well, the proportions, very...
Okay.
Very, very loyal to those proportions. So everything should be 1 to 3, 3 to 9, 3 to 5.
Okay, anyway.
So this is a little bit the extension of that, and it is done by Knobelsdorff. Frederick the Great could design whatever he wanted, but it's got some similarity to the Pantheon in Rome. That's also true. But the fun fact about the music in Frederick's life was that he was a musician himself.
Flute.
Yeah, but and he played flute every evening. End of the day, playing flute. He went on a war for years, and he brought his flute with him, a foldable piano. Some people who were a little string quartet. So every time after a day of war, he made music, and that's one thing that also explains why there's an opera house. And the little people thing, and educating his folks. And also one thing is, whenever, and he had a lot of money to spend, so all the big musicians came here. In fact, it's the first club in Berlin. So everyone from all over Europe came here to look at the castrates singing or hear them singing. And he didn't have the Royal Lodge. He was right behind the conductor. So, and he was reading the music with him. And whenever the conductor made a fault, he was tapping on his shoulder, from, hey, you should go this, and hey, you should do that. He was very strict to that.
Control freak.
Yeah. Funny thing. So, go on with that one.
The library.
Yeah.
What is now the law building for the Humboldt University.
Yeah.
designed, I can't remember when it was built, but for some reason he modeled this after Maria Theresa of Austria's favorite building in Wien.
It was like they had a design over there in Vienna and they didn't have place to put it up, so they took it over here.
Okay.
It's really out of contact.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, I personally find it beautiful. What I find funny is that as soon as it was ready, apparently the royal book collection at that point in time wasn't very big and fit entirely in this left-hand side of the building on the ground floor. Yeah. It took a couple of decades for the Royal Library to build up. Yeah. I don't know what they did with the rest of the space during that entire time. I guess we should mention what happened here May 10th, 1933.
No, not yet.
Okay.
We will come there because we are not ready with the story yet, because it's a similarity to the story of the opera house.
Okay.
Because Frederick, he was very keen on reading, but he was also very keen on writing and very keen on having polemics, fights with using your pen as a weapon. Also, he was the guy who burned not books but pamphlets when he was in a row with Voltaire. He didn't like something that Voltaire written, so he burned that. Not only did he bring musical instruments and musicians when he went on a war, but also a little library.
Right. Which is probably where Napoleon got the idea from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all like from his vision, how to create a state, how to create an intellect among your people. And these are great examples and to stimulate that thing. And also build a library. I think this is a very great trinity of tolerance, arts and science.
Yeah.
So open up your mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was he also the one that introduced, or was that his father? I believe that was Friedrich Wilhelm I, Frederick II's father, who introduced universal education for all kids between 6 and 13. I think that was his father. Yeah.
I read that it was
Frederick II?
Yeah.
Okay.
But not he didn't. He wanted them, which was obligatory.
Yeah.
To learn to read and write, but not too much, because then they would read and write too good.
Yeah.
Too well. They should know how to read and write, while being in parts of his kingdom, but they shouldn't come to the capital.
Right.
So
stay out in the field.
Spread knowledge. Yeah. And one last thing, of course, Henry is his little brother. He
Prince
got
Heinrich.
he got his palace, and for obvious reasons he didn't have offspring. So immediately after, this became the university.
Right, 1820 I believe it did.
And then you've got these big shots who are also some of them buried in Berlin, like Hegel, and I almost find it incomprehensible.
Where's Hegel buried?
On the Dorotheen Friedhof.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I've been there tons of times. I don't know if I've seen his. Huh.
But thinking of Karl Marx and Hegel walking in that building, no. Einstein also. It's,
W.E.B. Du Bois also studied there. Angela Davis was there for about a year and a half in the late 60s and received a number of citations. Yeah, the thing was, as I understood it, Frederick II hated the palace. Even though he contributed the dome, he hated the palace. He wanted something smaller. So his architect set about coming up with this thing. He determined in the end that it was also still too big. At that point, they were like, well, Your Highness, I mean, the damn thing's ready. What are we going to do? And then he just suggested, you know what, let's just give it to my little brother. And I think Heinrich at that point was like 14 or 15. So this 14, 15-year-old boy moved into that thing and then turned it into his sort of like man club.
okay.
Right? Yeah. Right, the Friedrich Wilhelm Universität is what it initially was, right?
Yeah.
Up until the...
Just as this square had that name.
Friedrich Wilhelmplatz, Friedrich Wilhelm Universität. Right. And it became the Humboldt in the 1949?
You tell me, because that's one thing that skipped I never came across, but I guess it's a DDR,
I thought it was,
GDR thing.
Exactly. I thought it was 1949. 49.
So maybe people hear in the background the cheering of the crowd who are watching football at the other side of the Brandenburger Gate. But clockwise, we are again doing radio on historic here with Jason Honey and myself, Rinus Van Alebeek. And we're standing right at the side of Unter der Linde. And clockwise, we are watching the Humboldt University, which was formerly the palace of King Henry. Then the Opera House. In the corner, there's the Hedwig Cathedral. Then
Hotel de Rome.
Hotel de Rome and the Humboldt University, which was the law department, which was originally built as the library.
You want to talk about that Frederick II over there?
Go.
Well, I forget when this thing was actually dedicated. I know that during the war, the Nazis hid it to protect it from being damaged. After the war, the GDR government did not want it here. For a very long time, it was at Sanssouci. They took it back out to Sanssouci, and that's where it was.
I think at the end of the GDR, they put it back.
At the end of the GDR, they brought it back over.
Yeah.
Now, on a side note, absolutely trivial note, I can't remember when it was, at some point, I think in the late 90s or the early noughts, while performing some construction here, a US 500-pound bomb was found at the base of that thing. And so you can only imagine, they had to evacuate the library, they had to evacuate the university building over here, they do all these things. Yeah. I'm not sure who's responsible for that statue. I love it myself, actually. I always point it out. All those assembled generals and bureaucrats underneath it. Do we want to walk over there?
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we come at some Dutch royalty as well.
Right over here, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. What was this big building? This was also the library, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
It had a glass dome over it, so it must have been very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the library, but it was
Here come
then
the
the
Polish
library
fans,
as well.
man. Oh my God.
That's one thing that you can also use on your tours, because you see all those patchwork things.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a restoration, but it's also because they couldn't find the original stones.
Right.
And that's how you got in the buildings itself the memory of Second World War. It's the same at the Humboldt University, the ex-King
Das
Henry
alte Museum.
thing.
This alte, the columns in front, it looks like Indian corn.
It also has some normal bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are in front of the.
Who's that central character there?
Maybe they are Keith and or Keith and Mark,
Yeah.
whatever. Those are the generals from the Silesian Wars.
Okay. I'm wondering if that's von August Wilhelm, Prince von Preußen. Where's his buddy von Winterfeld? That was his big,
I think
big
if
buddy.
you walk around it, we got all the generals that were involved and all the streets that are Kreuzberg. So you got Heinrich here. Henry, you see? And those are also people that fought in those wars.
Right. Battenburg. Yeah. Dessau. Natürlich.
Zieten, another general.
Yeah.
But I can't recall a Zietenstraße.
Lessing, von Kramer, Immanuel Kant, von Finkenstein. Pretty austere looking characters. Here he is, von Winterfeld. This was his, I think he and Dessau von Dessau. Huh?
And so there you got your streets, Kleiststraße, Tauentzienstraße.
Yeah. Von Winterfeld was his big buddy and pal, who he really missed. If you go to the Invalidenstraße cemetery, Winterfeldstein is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Okay, so that's the
Obelisk-like.
rather monumental grave.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not thinking of Scharnhorst. I don't think you're thinking of Scharnhorst. Von Winterfeld is sort of towards the back. If you enter, it's on the left-hand side, kind of recessed over by where that section of the wall is.
Yeah.
It's an obelisk, and it's even got, it's encrusted, I say encrusted, with several quotes von Friedrich about the loss of his friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, because there's one that dates back to the 1750s or something like that.
Wow. Man.
Yeah, so much history, and then the noise in the background. I saw a flag of Poland.
Poland, yeah, Poland.
And
Poland
is at the wrong side of the public viewing. They just occupy the Bebelplatz. Fun thing. And all the riot cars of the police are there blinking with their blue lights. But this is contemporary history. Fun fact is that on the Bebelplatz there's a BBC studio.
Where is it?
It's on the Bebelplatz with containers. They build a TV studio.
Oh, you mean to cover the Euros?
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen it. It's
Yeah.
massive. Yeah. You guys, do we want to get away from this?
We go back to the Bebelplatz.
Okay, because this is going to be here in a second. Or I guess, no, they're heading them off that way.
So if you will be in Berlin sometime, then we are just at the gate that's surrounding the statue of Frederick the Great. And now we walk back to the Bebelplatz. You can do this yourself.
Friedrich Rex.
What's that?
It's an anus sticker.
Really?
Yeah, that's all over town. This is beautiful. This crest, the Prussian eagle.
Yeah, for Dutch visitors, there's a White House at the other side, at the opposite the library,
Yeah, so
with the portal and the last.
it was
the last king.
how do you pronounce it?
Van Oranje.
Yeah, he lived there temporarily, right?
No, he lived there until his death.
Okay,
So after he was no more the king of Holland, he went there.
he came to Berlin.
Yeah. So, and now we have to go to another time in history. So, to recap this a little bit, this place originally was an expression of education, of a possibility, of giving a possibility to everyone to look for his way in life, whatever way you wanted it. So the religion you want, yes or no religion, yes or no music, yes or no science, and if you want to have science study, you could choose from a lot of faculties.
I like that point you made earlier, and that's something I really want to use. Art, religion, science.
Yeah.
Is that how you quoted it?
Well,
I
I
don't
said tolerance.
Tolerance, thank you. That was it. That was a great point. Uh-huh.
And education came later, but that was after his death.
Yeah.
So now we are floating to the middle of this square, where there's a big glass square. A square in a square, yeah. And if you find the right angle, you can look through it.
It's generally better like this. They got to do something about this glass. I always wondered if they made it more sort of form of a roof, keep all the stuff running down it. In the winter, you can't see anything.
No.
Anyway, so we're standing here right in the smack dab in the middle of Bebelplatz, and it was here on May 10th of 1933, just about sundown. The place filled up with a bunch of SS men. And next thing you know, at the entry over there to the Humboldt University, some men start building a podium. Next thing you know, there's a PA system there. Next thing you know, the Platz fills up with all kinds of kids, primarily from the National Socialist Student Union. And none other than Joseph Goebbels shows up and delivers an address here that I think went on for about 40 minutes. Okay, and he got the kids worked up into such a tizzy that afterwards most of them were given a list. It was called die Schwarze Liste, the black list. And they were advised to go in here and pull roughly 4,000 books off the shelves and heap them up right here. And then the whole thing was doused with gasoline. And this is where the Nazi book burning took place, May 10th, 1933. It's my understanding that didn't just happen in Berlin that night, but rather 32 different universities all over Nazi Germany and Nazi Austria. The reason we know about this one so much is because it was personally led by Joseph Goebbels, and it was documented. It's been filmed. You might have seen that film, the books flying through the air and all the torches and the kids sieg heiling. Who was on the list? Well, you can only imagine. Heinrich Mann, of course, Heinrich Heine, of course, as a Jew, Karl Marx, Albert Einstein, Erich Kästner was on that list. Emil and the Detectives, I always found that really interesting, okay? And what I also find really interesting, and I always mention this, is that guess who else was on that list? None other than Mark Twain. Yeah, Mark Twain. The Nazis didn't like Mark Twain. And for a long time I didn't really know what that was about.
And you saw the movie, Nothing New on the Western Frontier. Also, Erich Maria Remarque was on the list.
Okay, I'm sure. I can totally see why.
Yeah.
Okay. I always thought it was because Mark Twain every once in a while would poke fun at the German language, der, die, and das, the way it sounds. But apparently that wasn't it. Who they really didn't like the figure of Huckleberry Finn. Yeah? The guy who was always whispering in Tom's ear about how you don't need society, you don't need adults, you don't need to go to work, you don't need anything. All you need is the river and your friends. Yeah? That sent the wrong message to youth. So they didn't appreciate that very much. So it's my understanding that for that reason, that's why Twain was on that list.
That goes to a little side note, because it was tradition in Germany to walk down the Rhine at one side and walk up the Rhine at the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere where these people went, they had signs, like the boxcar signs, from where there was a dog who would bite, where they would get some bread, where they could sleep, where they were hostile, where they were friendly, where there was some work. So they knew where to go, and that's how there was a constant movement.
Mm-hmm.
These people were called the Kunde, the clients, which were more or less maybe hobos or people who were looking for work for a day, work for a week. And they eventually had also a congress where they all came together. And when the Nazis came, they all disappeared.
Oh, wow.
They all disappeared.
Why did the Nazis like them?
The same thing, that there were asocial elements.
Antisocial, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were giving a bad example of not being a family and living on the streets and living to their own laws.
Right.
There is a small extension to your story, Jason, because the student organization was a very old student organization. We all know the movies where you got the people who stand like a stockfish and very rigid. They've got a monocle and they've got a scar on their cheek, which they earned during duels while they were a student. And from that side of the student organization, these students came. And they were already busy for 1 month gathering books, destroying books. It was even so that after Hitler came into power in 30 January of 1933, the SA, the militant order of the Nazi party, they went everywhere where people opposed the government, like Georg Gross. They went into his house and destroyed everything. They arrested people and beat them up. That was already going on. So those students, starting in April with this kind of things, they just continued this work.
Was it in April of 33 that Magnus Hirschfeld's institute was stormed and ransacked?
No, that was
after or before?
That was the big that was the big fish they caught, which gave them so many books that they could eventually organize this big thing. So there are some parts which have to be arranged in your story, and not because I'm a wise nose. No, it's because I read this book and got information. So what happened was that they had a lot of books. Because they raided libraries, they were helped by professors, they were helped by librarians, they raided the university libraries. So they got a lot of books, and they were all stored on Oranienburgerstraße. But then they found this Institute of Sexual Science by this guy Magnus Hirschfeld, and then they got like 20,000 books, and they said, "Oh wow, it's led by a homosexual, it's led by a Jew, and it's sex." So they got all these books, and that they couldn't fit in the storage room in the Oranienburgerstraße. So behind the Prince Henry Palace, behind the university, you've got the Bebelplatz. That's where they gathered. Then they went to the Oranienburgerstraße. Then they went with torches. Then they went to the Reichstag. Then they came under the Brandenburger Tor, and then they arrived here.
Okay.
With all those books.
That was in this. This is in that book.
Yeah, and of course, it was a giant. It could work up to a giant manifestation. So that's where the Nazi Partei jumped up, because that could be used for propaganda reasons. And they burned all those books. That's true. But at 12 o'clock in the night, that's the point where Goebbels came in and came up with this big speech.
Okay.
But they had lights put up so that there was enough light to film it. It started to rain a little bit, but it was a bit more pouring then. And what you said with the fire brigade putting petrol on it so that the flames will be more spectacular.
Dramatic. So what happened at Bebelplatz? That's where Hirschfeld's library?
No, that was the point where they collected, where they came together. And then they went to get all the other books. There were several trucks driving, here, and with the students with the torches, etc. Hirschfeld, there was a bust of him in this institute, and they destroyed it, and the head of that bust was on a pole, and it was also here that they could see it.
Yeah.
So we're not there yet in our present day society. I am Dutch. We just have a new government, and we've got a fascist government. So I was at Topographie des Terres yesterday, where you've got a very small exhibition, but very nice exhibition, about the first Weimar years.
Okay.
So all those Freikorpses, all those independent military units. And this gave me the impression you just need one little sparkle, and then it will explode.
That's what somebody commented regarding Trump on Jan 6th. He was looking for a Reichstag fire.
Yeah.
You know, he's definitely looking for a Reichstag fire. And by instigating that, things could have gotten crazier. Thank God it didn't.
It's dictator playbook, you know. You reach power, and the next thing you do, that is to set up an attentat. Huh?
That enables you then to take all the power necessary to
and
stay
then
in place.
you can tighten the law and take everything in your direction.
Right. After convincing Hindenburg that he needed to act how he acted, and then shortly after that, Hindenburg dying, it was pretty damn clear that there weren't going to be any elections. Hitler was there to stay. Yeah? There to stay.
My friends all tell me you could never be wrong to me, so I'll just smile for my friends and call her later. For my friends and call her later. You could never be wrong to me.
Who's Austria playing? I guess they're playing Poland, huh? Sorry, we're getting off subject. Here we are talking about book burnings, and there I'm seeing all that red, white, and black.
I think Poland is playing at 6
Poland,
o'clock.
I think Poland and Austria are playing against each other, yeah. Okay. So we covered Bebelplatz, Friedrich Wilhelm Platz. We have directly over here across the street from us, the Neue Wache. It would be great to talk about the Neue Wache sometime. And also here, das alte Zeughaus von Andreas Schluter.
Yeah, but there was also an attempt to kill Hitler there. Tell me.
Reichsheldentag, 1943, right after Stalingrad. This young OKW staff officer by the name of Rudolf von Gersdorf unilaterally decided that he was going to take out Hitler. The story is super funny, if something like that can be considered funny. He apparently got given the job to personally escort Hitler through the exhibition. The exhibition was captured Soviet infantry weapons. His plan was he was going to stuff his uniform full of plastic explosives, disappear into the bathroom shortly before Hitler showed up. Oh, guests that day were Hitler, Himmler, Goering, and Dönitz. And at the right moment, he was going to turn around and just give Hitler a big old hug, and boom. but Hitler just was inside for maybe 2 minutes.
No, 5 seconds.
5 seconds, really short. Just spun around on his heel, said, you know what, I've already seen all this stuff. I got stuff to do at the office. Turned around, and there's our hero standing there, click, 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 click. How he got out of that, I do not know. But he lived till like 1983 or something in Dusseldorf. Rudolf von Gersdorf is probably one of the most dramatic, almost hard to believe assassination attempt stories on Hitler. Yeah, Reichsheldentag, 1943. Unfortunately, this place is closed, and I really, really want to go in there. 2026, I think, is when it's closed till. Yeah, they're completely redoing the inside. Yeah. It's beautiful in there.
Pity.
Yeah.
Because this was one of the first Gesamtkunstwerke, so where they brought various aspects of art together. So it's not only architecture, it's also sculpture, and it's also painting, and they all create more or less three-dimensional artwork in the entrance. And the very cruel thing is they've got heads of of the enemies on the battlefield, all in agony, how they are dying, and that's
sculpted heads.
Yeah.
Okay. Yikes.
Anyway, talking about artistry that they got from the Russians and on display. There's something coming to the Berlin Story Museum as well. The bunker near the Anhalter Bahnhof. Right.
So Russian weapons from Ukraine? Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Okay, when's that? Oh, I'll go to that.
Now.
It's now? It's there now?
Yeah. Now.
Which bunker are you talking about? The small one, where they used to have the Gruselkabinett? Or you mean the big one over there by?
That's the Berlin Story bunker, not.
Okay, there's the little bunker right next to the former rail yard at Anhalter Bahnhof. And then if you go farther down, directly on the Landwehrkanal, kind of fair gegenüber from the Technisches Museum, there's a big bunker system there as well too. And that's where I think a lot of those statues that are now in the Festung Spandau. Yeah, I think they all used to be kept in there. I remember going in there years ago and seeing a lot of those statues.
Some of them were buried as well.
Yeah.
Before they put them there.
Anyway, okay, so
it's our job, Jason, telling people what they see and what happened. And here on Unter der Linde, with so many old buildings and rebuilt old buildings and restorated old buildings, there's also a lot of history that starts from right at the beginning up till now. But you have been listening to one of the episodes in our
Radio On Historical series.
Yeah, where we talked about the Bebelplatz, which was the Forum Fridericianum, and the significance it had and still has for Berlin. I was here with Jason Honey and with Adrian Shephard doing all the technical stuff.
Thanks for listening to Radio On.
Yeah, my name is Rinus Van Alebeek.
I am Jason Honey, aka Boy True. I am the shitty listener.
See you next time.
See ya.
You've been listening to Radio On Berlin, the historic show with Jason Oney and Rinus Van Alebeek on this summer solstice day and a full moon. What could be better? Thank you for listening, and join us again and listen and connect with us also with our podcasts and our website www.radioonberlin.com. Have a good day.
You have been listening to Radio on Berlin. Yeah!